listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin. To master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Once you walked in a forest of splendor in which everything you did and everything you thought was aligned. It is possible at this time to begin to return to the old knowledge. Intuitive healer and manifestor Julia Griffin is here to talk about this unique time in history when all sentient beings, animals, plants, trees, and the earth are intent on creating this change. The wolves awakened her to the most incredible light, which opened gifts and brought knowledge that she longs to share. You are creators, and you are born to be creators of beauty, possibility, and joy. Join Julia on a journey into a beautiful and magical world where amazing possibilities exist. Let us help open the door. The Power of Inspiration and Awakening with Julia Griffin starts right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julia Griffin. You're listening to The Power of Inspiration and Awakening on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour. Learn more about mysticism, all the wonderful things that you can use with your skills, and to go to a higher vibration and understand more about your life. So our guest today is Julia Gordon-Bramer. Welcome. So glad to have you here. And it's not a mistake. Both of our names are Julia. She's a professional tarot card reader, a Sylvia Plath scholar, an award-winning writer and poet, and former professor for the graduate writing program at Lindenwood University. She's the author of several books, including Fixed Stars Govern a Life, Decoding Sylvia Plath, and Tarot Life Lessons. We're going to talk about Tarot Life Lessons today. So if you've ever wanted to learn about it, this is the day to do it. She's listed as one of St. Louis's top 10 psychics by Psychic St. Louis and St. Louis's #1 fortune teller by CBS Radio. She's appeared on numerous local and regional television and radio shows, as well as appearances on Nickelodeon and MTV. And your book is out in November. So people who are
November 7th.
So people can you can go ahead and pick this up. We're going to talk too about how you get started reading the tarot or understanding the tarot. But first, I loved the introduction to your book. I felt like I was there when you were talking about how you became a tarot reader. So tell us a little bit about that. It was beautifully written.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. As you know, I align each story with a tarot card in the major arcana. And so I thought, since everyone always asks me about how I got into this and who I am, I thought I would start with the Fool card for myself. And if you're familiar with the tarot imagery, the Fool is just sort of throwing himself off a cliff, right?
With a dog and a smile on his face.
Yep. Looking up into the sky. Some representations have him chasing a butterfly with a playful dog at his heels. And it's all fun, and it's just no plan. And that was true for me. I never set out to become a professional tarot card reader. It just kind of evolved over time. And starting from when I was 16, where the story really begins.
I think, because I've heard this so many times, and it's true for me as well, that most people who go really deeply into the spiritual side of things, that would be like the last thing they would ever do when they become interested in it. You know, like it was just a hobby for me for so long.
Right. Yeah. Same here. I didn't go professional until I was in graduate school around 2007, when I would bring my cards into class, and sometimes people would have me over for their parties, and I had one professor especially who brought me into his other classes to read cards, and he was doing, tarot and poetry kind of segments. And finally, it got to the point I had to start charging for it because it was just taking too much of my time.
Same here. And then after a while, I was making so much more money doing what I'm doing now that I had to quit my job.
Exactly. Same here. And I was teaching, which of course teaching is it's a noble profession, but not known to be super
lucrative.
high paying. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is interesting. I asked you before we started, but I'm going to say my feeling about you when I was reading your book is that it was a past life skill, that you had many lifetimes of doing it because you were so clear and neutral when you described readings.
That's interesting. Yeah, I really do believe I have to be neutral. I was just telling a friend last night, if I'm too attached to you, I have my biases. I have my things I want for you, or I may fear, and so I would rather approach it from that blank place. I do still read for my friends and loved ones, but it has to be on questions that I'm not too attached to the outcome. If my
Right.
son asks me about his safety, I have something to say about that. But yeah, so that's interesting that you feel that just from my writing. I love that.
And I loved the first part of it. If you read the first part of her book, she sounds like such a free spirit. And as you go through the book, you're more and more disciplined and you've learned certain things. And it's really a fascinating read to me from that perspective.
Yeah, I try to involve myself in all the stories as I'm kind of going on the journey with my clients and processing with my clients. And I tried to be true to, I didn't want to present myself like this hoity-toity, holier than thou kind of, I am the guru. I wanted to be a real human being with fears and insecurities and and all of that.
I think for anyone who's really good, it's a mutual journey.
Yeah, I think so. And I my best clients have always changed me some as well
Yeah.
in every reading.
Yeah, it's the mutual learning process. So, for people who are not familiar with the tarot, just give us a brief overview of that. And I'm going to say, so I don't forget to say it or ask later. You
Mhm.
said to start with the Rider-Waite deck for people who are learning the tarot.
I think that is the best. There are a couple variations of it. I have right here. This is a giant version, but the giant Rider-Waite, also known as the Universal, which the Universal is just a little more brightly colored, which I enjoy. But there are many Rider-Waite based decks, which are also good. I just think the Rider-Waite symbolism is excellent to learn from because the pictures, which I describe in my stories, are just so full of information. And another spin-off might not necessarily have all of those elements. There's many times that I'm reading from a different deck and I'm remembering the Rider-Waite deck. And I'll even say, okay, I really like the way this Nine of Swords is, but let me show it to you over here on the Rider-Waite. And I'll describe, that the girl in the bed is turned away from the swords and in this particular way, and her world is fine, and she's cozy in bed, and she even has a comforter, and even though it's a very dark, scary looking card, I just think they nailed it. And I think it is perfection. There are a lot of beautiful decks. My very favorite is the Alchemical Tarot by Robert Place,
Mhm.
which is close to the Rider-Waite. But even again, I'll go back to the Rider-Waite many times with my clients, even using that deck.
Yeah, because I think that one's more based on the alchemical symbols from the Middle Ages when they did the plates. And
Yeah,
I know myself from looking at them, every time you look at them, you see something different
of
or you
course.
feel it a different way.
What I find is that my clients, I usually give them a choice of a few decks. And the Rider-Waite is always one of the choices. But it's been really fun to see. And I have on my Instagram, if you go kind of deep into my pictures, clients have chosen cards that many times look exactly like them. And it is so interesting to me that they always kind of hone in on that deck and the deck for them.
Right.
Very interesting. And in fact, this alchemical, the Knight of Swords, I believe, is it's my son Ross spitting image, looks just like him.
Yeah, so it's very interesting and very personal. So let's tell them, how does it work?
So, Carl Jung described, he worked with the tarot with his patients, and that the symbolism, it's the hero's journey, that journey of self-actualization from complete ignorance of the fool all the way to, the most actualized of the world card. But it's, I compare it to dream analysis. So I think in the same way that we dream images, and it's a personal thing on what those images mean. I can tell you what I think your dream means, but you're the one who's really feeling it and processing it and knowing those little, perhaps I could coach you through, like, okay, so what were you feeling when you were running away from the bad guy, or or whatever. But it's the way the tarot works is all of these images tell the story of what's going on, where your energy is going, what you're kind of inviting into your life, really. And I think that's a wonderful tool to do things differently if we see something coming up that we don't like. I tell all my clients that I can read your cards because we're connected just by being alive. I call that life force God. I don't tell people how to do God or what to call God. That's your business. But if you can go there, if you can say, okay, I'm alive, I'm hooked into this God system, then you have great power. And it's a matter of bringing the subconscious into the consciousness. The magic, of course, is how do the right cards fall in the right place over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I believe, is spirit.
Yeah, it's the universe speaking through us and to us.
Yeah.
And we can't always get that symbolism, and we can't always get that message when we're distracted in day-to-day life. So if we're looking at something like that and really focusing on it, we have an opening for it to answer, I think.
Yeah, and that's it can be helpful to have someone else read your cards because of that distraction sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And, I generally don't read my own cards too often, again, unless I can remain very neutral about it. But I've taught a good friend how to read, and he'll read for me on occasion. And yeah, it's the kind of thing that you got to start from that blank place, right?
Yes. Yeah, I have a couple friends that I've trained to do some of the things that I do psychically. So I've got someone, A, to remind me, and B, to be able to help me when I really need it.
Yeah.
Because we can't always do it for ourselves. It's just one of the rules.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, people think when you have the name psychic attached to your name that, okay, you must know everything and you must never have a problem, and and you're a failure if something bad happens, and just not the case at all.
No, it really isn't. So I wanted to ask you, I've read different books that linked the tarot to Egypt, Hebrew, French, and the Crusades. What's your opinion, since you work with them all the time?
Yeah. So I have been really had some of the academics have really clobbered me with the history of tarot. And while it is not, I mean, the lore, if I want to get into some of the old books, which just said crazy stuff, they said it came from ancient Egypt, and channeled by Hermes, and
Right.
and all of that. And that's fun. I think we know for sure that the tarot, the first decks started around the 1400s in Italy. We know for sure that the Romani people carried them across Europe. And I find that very interesting. So, of course, in the 1400s, it was the Crusades. The Romanis and many other, diverse people were killed for their beliefs.
Like everybody, yeah.
Yeah. And so we listen to me, isn't that funny? Had to hide and encode information that was outside of the scope of the Catholic Church. So they show up as cards, like a party game. and many people have played Taroki, and it is a party game to some still. And in fact, my literary mentor and hero, Sylvia Plath, played Taroki, and because her roots were Austrian and German. And so I believe that there's a lot of evidence to support that there were alchemical and astrological and mythological symbols all encoded in these cards and the pictures. And certainly the Golden Dawn at the turn of the century beefed that up and made that
Right.
more clear for our modern decks today.
I mean, just the symbolism, if you just want to take one card and meditate on it, it's profound.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, in your book, you mainly use the major arcana. Can you explain that to our listeners and why you used it?
Yeah, well, so I set, just to go back to why I wrote the book, the book came from journal entries originally that I had done over the years, and it was sort of my big stories. And during COVID, I decided to put it together. The way I put it together, the structure that I used, the framework for this book is the major arcana, which is the more famous tarot cards, starting with the Fool card, number 0, all the way to the World card, number 21. And so there are 22 stories, 0 to 21, plus my introduction, that explain that this is a journey, that this is a growth process that we all go through. And I hope that as you read, you'll see my growth as well. Now, these stories all happened at different times. What gave me the idea to put them in this ordering was my Plath work, actually, because through my scholarship, Sylvia Plath had done everything on this Kabbalistic structure. Tarot, of course, is in alignment with the Kabbalah tree of life. So I may occasionally refer to Kabbalah. And so it just flows really nicely.
It does flow really nicely. And I know in alchemy, they believe that it represents the journey of our soul. And
exactly.
We do it over and over. It's not just once.
Right. Yeah. And so, so we may run through that tree of life a few times, even if we have a good long life.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So why don't you share one of your wonderful stories with us?
As far as just sort of recapping or
reading? One of your stories out of the book and a favorite card or however you want to do it.
Okay. Well, let me think about this now. There's so many. I think one of the more intriguing ones, let me think. There was around, so I have 2 stories with the Emperor card, and that is number 4 in the major arcana. And the Emperor is, and it is kind of unusual for me to have 2 stories. There's only 2 cards that I do this on, and it was really because I just couldn't pick. But the Emperor represents paternalism, and and at his best, he's our father, he's our leader, he's our visionary. At his worst, he's pretty cruel and tough. And so I tell 2 stories in this one, beginning with a young girl who came to see me in a coffee shop. And it was pretty interesting because we went through the whole reading before she really got to the question that she most wanted to ask me, which was, what happened with her father and why did her father not love her anymore? And we put cards down, and I used my favorite deck. I used this alchemical deck. And the alchemical deck is different in the way that it has 2 lovers cards. It has a sort of erotic, passionate, lovers getting it on.
Yeah, the obsessive love. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it has this sort of sweet, sedate, more familial love. And the interesting thing was, so some people take one of those lovers out. Some people will just pick which card they want to use. I've always used both because I think there's all kinds of love out there. And
Definitely.
sometimes it represents, what we want. Um, so we looked at her cards for her father, and immediately this they call them the ladies instead of the pages in this deck, and this young lady of cups felt rejection, which showed right around the time of puberty. And then it all started to come out that her father was feeling, kind of aroused and creeped out by her
Mhm.
body changing, and he shut down. And it was really powerful because he did the right thing.
Mhm.
He was a good dad, but he didn't know how. You don't talk about feelings like that.
No.
There are taboo feelings. And when we were done with that reading, she and I were sobbing. I mean, it was powerful.
Well, it's
Um,
sad, and I'm sure it happens to a lot of men and fathers and
yeah,
daughters.
yeah, yeah. And then the second part of the Emperor is a story of a young woman that I call a frenemy, and just a very negative person who was kind of overly attached to how hard things are in life and how bad life is, and fantasizing on suicide. And so I explored my journey with her in the second part. And that was interesting for me in writing it, because as the emperor, it's all this masculine energy, but she embodied this harsh, cold masculinity, even though she wasn't lesbian or any, it was
Right.
just,
Even though she was fully feminine, she still had
yeah.
that kind of negative cut off that feeling.
Exactly. And that was important to me to express too, that we all have masculine and feminine qualities, of course. And we can get really stuck in our views. And she really challenged me on some spiritual stuff. I remember visualization. Oh, I've tried all that stuff. It doesn't work. And and I challenged her back, and she drove me freaking crazy.
That.
so I playfully tell that story. But yeah, so that's an example of one of the chapters.
Right.
Um, and each card has one that's in alignment with the theme of the main card.
And it's fun to read like that, I thought.
Thanks. Yeah, I had fun writing it. I truly did. It felt very easy to put the book together. And which, that's a God thing, right?
That's a God thing. I do
Yeah.
think there was one lady who was wrapped up with a man that was, I guess, getting money, manipulating her to get money from her, an older lady, and
Yeah, that's
prayed for
that's
her. And
mhm.
I just thought that's so interesting because I always pray for the people that I talk to. They probably never know it, but it's like you can feel the weight of their personality and what they're
Yeah.
going through, but the choice isn't for you. All you can do is indicate the direction.
Yeah, and she was a lonely widow, and oh, my heart went out to her, and I tried to save her. I did my best, but she got angry at me at one point, said, "You sound just like my daughter." And yeah, I think there's a lot about my boundaries in the book, when I have them and when I don't have them.
Mhm.
And how much I do care, and I hope that always shows that even the people of questionable morals, that I still care, and I find a way in to love them.
I think you have to care to do this kind of work.
Yeah,
And you
I
have to put
agree.
your own prejudices and perceptions aside because what's right or wrong for you and them is different.
I agree, absolutely. Yeah. And sometimes they need to make their mistakes, that they're just, that's their path. And it's heartbreaking to watch, but it's kind of like raising children too. You just got to let them do their thing.
You have to trust that the universe will work it out for them. I did though think when I was reading that, I had a friend who had just gotten married, and she said, I'm going to read my own cards and it's going to tell me how wonderful it is to get pregnant right away. And they clearly said she would lose her magic if she did. Even she read them in that. But she went ahead and did it and lost her magic. I always thought that was the oddest thing, that someone who could read that well would make that choice. Because I said, it's not saying don't have children. It's saying wait to have children.
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
I know. So I thought that was strange. And then another time, I haven't done this in years, but I did a reading for myself, and you know how that goes. You keep thinking if you do it again, it will change, but it doesn't. It's just different cards saying the same thing. Because you're stuck, right? I mean, it's showing you're stuck. Here's where you need to go. But a friend of mine cleared me, and she said, do the cards again. I'm like, the fourth time? I don't think you're supposed to do that. She said, oh, just do them. But after she cleared me, the entire spread changed. And I thought, wow, that was fascinating.
Yeah. I think that the tarot is going, I tend to get similar readings. If someone will ask me the same question another time, sometimes I'll get similar cards, if not the same cards, right. or it'll expand on what I just said. It can be very frustrating to my clients. There's a meme out there where someone's like, reshuffle. That's not, I think there's a curse word or two in there too. But
the shuffling is not going to change it, folks.
Yeah, right. And people don't always understand that. And like I said, I look at it as an opportunity to change your energy. So if you don't like what you're seeing, all right, let's bring it back to you. And, I like to use that Gandhi expression, be the change you wish to see in the world. And I always tell my clients, he doesn't mean be a model citizen. He means if you see war out there, you have to say, all right, where's the war in me? Clearly, we've all got a lot of war going on right now. And so every day, one of the things that I do, if I feel someone is ruffling my feathers on Twitter, or if I feel angry at a family member or whatever, I have to rein it in and say, what's this really about with me? And where can I find my peace? And just work on that. And yeah,
I actually think that that's a big trend right now, because I can see how much nature is changing from the habits of all the creatures and the plants, and it's coming to us next. And so what she's saying about being present and figuring out where your consciousness is, and hopefully tapping into your heart or your inner self where peace is, it's going to be soon that if you want to be on a higher vibration, you have to get better at it. I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems we're really going one way or another right now. It's pretty interesting. We as humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, for those who've awakened, it was fun and it was games for us, but it's not anymore. It's
right.
all changing. Do you really want to evolve, or do you just want to think about love and light?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a much bigger thing, but I do think some of the value of the tarot is that it shows you where you're stuck and where you want to go.
Yes, absolutely. And opportunities for growth always, and real information. I mean, I like to give my clients tools to use. Like when they leave a session with me, I hope that not only do they have the understanding that, okay, this job venture is not on path right now, but here's what I can do to change it in the day to day, or something with love, or something with their health. And it's just very valuable that way.
Well, because if you can change your perception, and sometimes the tarot cards have shown me that there were things about myself or my life that I wasn't perceiving.
Yeah.
And you open that up and you're wider and you go, okay, I'm stuck here. I'm going to work on this part of myself. That's a big change right there.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't want to see it.
Oh, almost never. Let me be honest. I don't like seeing it, but I'm grateful later because it gives me a different point of view. I think as human beings, we tend to say, if this changed, if I could change this about me, I would be fine. And then you go to, well, I don't want to do it right now, or it will happen later. But if you can become more conscious of the forces that you have that can help you move that, that's a big advantage.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we have so much more power than we realize.
I agree. And I think that is what is so intrinsically important about it, because it's not just you're stuck. It's like these things are on your side. Look at this.
Right.
So I have been talking with Julia Gordon-Bramer about working with the tarot cards for intuitive information and spiritual direction in your life. So we'll talk more about the tarot and how you can integrate it and use it in your life and what it means when we return. And you can find Julia at Julia Gordon Bramer, BRAMER.com. And I'm at onetrueself.com, ONETrueself.com. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Julia Griffin at onetrueself.com, ONETrueself.com. And I'm talking with Julia Gordon-Bramer about her new book, which is on the tarot life lessons, and her mystical work with the tarot, and all the different things that you can find out about it and find out about yourself. We're talking about her stories and what she's learned from it and how they relate to you. So why don't you tell us what's unique about your book?
So the way my book is set up, it is not another how to read tarot book. And I think a lot of people might think at first glance that that's it, but these are actual stories in tarot life lessons. So somebody who has no interest in tarot, or other than, me, the subject in general, but no interest in learning tarot, they could still enjoy it just fine. My husband was one of those people who he loved the stories. They're universal stories. So we all know people who have been taken by scam artists. We all know people who are lonely. We all know people who are maybe putting love before common sense. Lots of different takes here on humanity, and so for those who are learning tarot, you're going to see how I do it step by step, really. But I try not to burden the writing with too much detail. If you got very interested in a card, you could pull any number of books or look something up online to really get into what that card is about. I just talk about what I see in the cards as they relate to my clients within the story. And have a little bit of fun with that. So at the end of each chapter, there is a tip on reading tarot cards, selecting decks, doing layouts. I have comments on when people tell me they believe tarot is evil, all sorts of things like that. So I just address kind of life as a tarot card reader.
What would you say that beginners should start with for a layout?
I think, the Celtic cross was the first layout I learned, and it's maybe one of the more elaborate ones. Some people do it with 10 cards. I do it with 11. I learned 11 cards. But I think that that's good to give a basic past, present, and future. Mm-hmm. I think that having the past and present there really sort of solidifies the reading, because if you see what you absolutely know already happened and what's happening right now, you're more inclined to trust those future cards versus if I'm just, calling out, this will happen. You don't know me from Adam. So I recommend the Celtic cross. But, I think a lot of questions can be answered with 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 card spreads, depending on how deep you want to go into it. And I think I get a little bit weird about, you go on Instagram and everyone's got their card for the day, and or answering some reader's question, and to me it feels very impersonal and kind of lacking that connection. It's interesting, it's nice to see the different decks and pretty table settings, and
Mhm.
but I can't say that, just like reading a horoscope out of a newspaper, I wouldn't necessarily hold that to be my truth either.
No, no, there are 12 signs, and think of the millions of people on the earth. You kind of need to look at your whole chart.
Yeah, exactly. Now, that said, I am the most Sagittarius person you're ever going to meet.
I'm a Sag too.
Are you? And two Julia Sages.
I know. That's pretty funny. So
Yeah.
what are your favorite major arcana cards?
Well, I talk about during the hardest time in my life, which was during my divorce when I was 30 years old. I really clung to the Strength card right here, which I just think is the most beautiful card in the tarot, in my opinion. She tames the beast, and she does it not with brutality. She does it with love and gentleness and her character. And so I've always been fond of that. I've always really loved the Sun card,
Oh, I
which of
know.
course is so joyful and happy. And then in my Plath work, I came to really love the Judgment card here. Judgment was a card that for a long time I didn't fully get it. And when I say a long time, I'm talking like decades. Like, I would read it and I would say, okay, don't judge yourself, or you're feeling harshly judged, or maybe Judgment Day. But I didn't really see it and understand it in the full process of self-actualization, and we see these bodies rising out of the graves, and God is calling, and it is a call. It's a spiritual call. So just like you and I have a call to do God's work in our way, and through mysticism, it is about all of that. And I think referring to my Plath scholarship, Sylvia Plath made me a really good tarot card reader, in a way that I was a good one before, but I was just so expanded through the Plath work to get the Kabbalistic influences and the alchemical influences and the astrology and astronomy and the mythology. None of that I had touched in my younger years.
Right.
So yeah, she was a genius's genius. We were talking about encoding, everything encoded in the symbolism in the cards. Well, she did that with poetry. And so
Ariel. Oh my goodness.
you
No
look
one has
at
touched Ariel.
you look at any poem in this book, and you'll see through my work that she has at least 6 different layers of meanings, that these words are doing, sextuplet duty with meanings. It's just mind-blowing.
I
Yeah.
remember I started reading her when I was 17, and I could see like colors and energy coming out of the words because of how she had constructed it. And I was like, wow, I don't even care what it says. I'm just going to sit here and feel the words go by for a while.
Right. I remember when I read the title poem, Ariel, and I remember thinking, stasis and darkness, and like, what does this mean? But I felt what it meant,
Exactly.
It was just on a whole other level. And yeah, and she taught me how to be a poet, truly, which I am also a poet.
I read that.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful. So let me go back to, I was thinking when you were talking about the Strength card, I know when I first quit my job to become an intuitive, I essentially read people's soul energy and help them put it into play in their lives. It was like a friend of mine did a reading, and I said, so is this going to work? I was also writing for Drunvalo at the time, Spirit of Mott, and the crossing card was the Strength card. And she said, it will take all of your strength, but you can do it.
Nice. Yeah.
And I used to keep the card out and look at it before I would go to bed at night. And I would think
Oh,
all of your strength, but you can do it.
I give prescriptions to some of my clients where I'll say, you go home and pull out this card and put it, print it out maybe and put it on your bathroom mirror or your visor on your car where you'll see it every day. And remember, I got this. I can handle it. I'm going to get through it. Because we forget and we doubt our strength so often.
And the cards are really wonderful for that if you need a certain quality.
Yeah. Just as a point of meditation, making a little altar. Yeah.
So when you do them for yourself, what kind of information do you get? I can't resist asking.
If I'm doing them for myself, I may ask about a person's thoughts or feelings about me, especially if I've got something going on, some sort of problem or situation, and I need some understanding. If I need to know how to approach a situation, generally, though, I like to keep it kind of, as I said, I don't want to get too attached to an outcome because the cards do seem to be tricky with that. And sometimes they'll show you what you most fear or what you most want. And so, that gets into all the biased stuff again.
Right.
And I don't want to do that.
It's difficult to know when it's your ego and when it's yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. But if I have something kind of general, if I want to know how to prepare for a trip or what kind of personality I may encounter, at a meeting, I may do something like that. I may just get some advice on what to wear. It's been not unheard of for me to just pull a card for some, to get an idea of a color or something.
I always felt it was a good question to ask what is hidden in a relationship.
Ah, yeah, that's a very good way of phrasing it. Yeah. Relationships are, of course, the number one question that I get asked about. I've always said people would rather know about love than anything.
Mm-hmm.
They'd rather have love than money, than health, than success. It all comes down, which is that primal thing, we're born into this world like, the first thing we want is love and need, and that's how we want to leave it.
Well, and we get that from the universe too. So it is a combination of forces there, I think.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that, I know, this was a fun question. You said in your book, the easiest way for you to learn about people is to do a tarot reading. And you talk about doing that when you were partying. So tell me about that.
Oh, yeah. So, for a long time, I just brought the cards as icebreakers because I'm not always, a lot of people have those entertaining stories or they're the jokesters or whatever, and that's not really me. But the cards usually interest people. And so yeah, I have, there is a chapter actually on a party, which it's pretty funny. I was with some people who were quite drunk. And I do make a reference that I say there is a reason we call it spirits, because sometimes that can be a really kind of dark energy. But it is a way to just sort of reflect back to people who they are, and they feel very seen and very understood. And I've had some clients tell me that, in one tarot session, it's been like a year of therapy, that they just felt entirely like everything was recognized and everything was made clear. And so that was, just a great compliment and blessing to hear that from one of my clients. But the party scene, I do have a funny situation where a drunk guy grabbed my cards and said, "Let me read those for you." and he didn't know how to read them, but he just started throwing them down, and he gave me a pretty accurate reading, Julia.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah. And I think he was just open, he was liquid.
He was liquid in your knowledge of it.
Yeah.
He probably absorbed some of your knowledge of it since he was that open.
And he was cueing off of the card pictures too, just kind of riffing on the symbolism, which these are universal symbols. So what he consciously knew or didn't, he certainly had some subconscious wisdom. And I think everyone can read the tarot because of that. If we're alive, we can hook into that system. It's just trusting ourselves, trusting our intuition.
Oh, and I meant to say earlier, the elements are in the minor arcana.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. And so, we sort of brushed past that, and I do include the minor arcana cards, even though the title is the living wisdom from the major arcana. There are lots of minor arcana cards that get discussed. And right, and those elements, so wands are fire, and pentacles are earth, and cups are water, and swords are air, and of course these elements all tie to certain traits of, air is thought, and fire is enthusiasm and imagination, and cups, of course, are love and emotion and the flowing of all of that, and then the pentacles, of course, are career and money and things of the earth. So and if you know the four suits, and if you get just the most cursory knowledge of numerology, anybody can read the cards and at least get some basic points down. And that's why we can read from regular playing decks too. They wouldn't have those gorgeous major arcana cards, but we've got all the minors in a regular deck of playing cards.
Yeah, I have a good friend, a close friend, and when she was a lawyer, she would always get swords. Then she fell in love and became a yoga teacher and devoted her life to yoga. And then they changed to hearts. And I always thought that was so funny.
Yeah, nice. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah.
We
And
both thought
there's
that
room
was
for
funny.
all.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
we
it's
would,
what we said. It's a long journey. You go back and forth.
yeah. We would be in some real trouble if we were missing some of the elements, right?
Yes. And I think it was just a temporary thing. And then when she saw that she had a softer side, she started using her time as a lawyer to help and benefit others as opposed to just winning cases. I don't know
Nice.
what her cards turned into at that point, but I always thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
That
Yeah.
they could indicate that so much was going on. Now, you do readings for people, right? They can go to
I
your
sure do.
website and get a reading.
Yeah, I do readings in person if you're here in St. Louis, and I fly all over the country for events. And I do video readings and phone readings, and even email readings. I have some people who really want like the utmost privacy, and they don't want me to know who they are, and they don't, and so they'll
Right.
do something very, very vague. And I've found they still work. I get repeat customers. I've had them for years and years.
Isn't that
So
interesting?
it is. And, and initially I thought, I don't know if I can do this. And I just figured I'd give it a shot. Same thing with clients who asked me to read for people who have passed on. And I thought, well, I'm not a medium per se, but they would push me and they say, oh, just do it. Or else they would give me a name, but they wouldn't tell me that the person passed on.
Right.
And it would show up. And I'd be like, I don't know, this person's not doing very well. I've got the Four of Swords, which is like a crypt, and I've
Yeah, right.
and then they'll identify the situation. So I have been able to, in some cases, help people find peace if they want to know, does somebody on the other side understand something now, or or if a lot of times we have had been estranged from someone we love and then they die. And
Right.
so the person who's surviving is in all kinds of grief and pain. And so that can help them to resolve something. And it's really fascinating because they will tell me time and time again that I say something that it's just like the clue to them that they're really there. I name their favorite color or a song, or I say words exactly like they used to say. And that's all the surprise. And I'm just channeling it. It's not anything I'm trying to do.
The universe is coming through you.
Right. Exactly.
So do you use tarot for your major life decisions or just smaller things?
Well, it's funny. I have a financial investor guy who has gotten used to, he'll say, all right, Julia, we're looking at this green energy over here or this
Mm,
over there, and I'm like, hold on, let me get my cards.
uh-huh.
And I'll pull something and I'll say yes on this, no on that. And it's become kind of a game between us. And it's been serving me well with my investments. So I'm happy about that. But you know, it gets back to how emotionally deep I am in something.
Mhm.
And I just don't think that I can look at it unattached if I am just really caught up with, I don't know, someone's drama or or something. So I have to look at it kind of case by case.
Well, it's coming back to what we were saying in the beginning. The way things are now, if it's a change or it's something that's highly personal, the best thing to do is get back into your heart and yourself and see where it takes you.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And
I mean,
just do that for a moment.
I think I get more from meditation, honestly, for myself.
Hmm.
Uh, and I usually do meditate before I read for other people. With my clients, I always say, you call me because I want to be like in meditation when they ring. I don't want to be trying to find someone's number, and or getting the Zoom link or whatever. So that's always been important to me to just kind of be in that calm place for the people I'm working with.
I don't think you can get universal wisdom otherwise.
I agree. And I know some people who just like, oh, I don't need to meditate. And I'm like, I don't think
I
so.
know. I mean, how is it going to come in otherwise?
Exactly. Exactly. Some people are very good at memorization and they get kind of some clever little buzzwords and that's not my style.
No.
I don't want to be a show. I want to have an
I
authentic
think
connection.
real readers want the universe to come through them. So we're seeing the real part of them.
Right. Exactly.
If you're not there, they can't go there either.
Yes. Yes. And the reason that I'm successful and full-time and have clients that I've had for more than 10 years, regular clients, they keep coming back because they know this. They know that they're felt, that they're heard, that they're understood. And and I think people know BS, you know.
Hmm.
Um, Anybody can say a couple mystical words and wave around some crystals and dress the part, but it's something else to connect.
I agree. So tell our listeners again about your website and they can contact you there for tarot readings and
Yeah.
they'll be able, I guess you'll have a link to go to your book.
Yes, yes. So yeah, the book I should say is available for pre-order now.
Hmm.
And it comes out on November 7th through Destiny Books, Tarot Life Lessons. My website is, and my name is really long, I know, Julia Gordon Bramer.com, and Gordon Gordon. A lot of people spell that wrong. And Bramer, B as in boy, RAM as in Mary, ER. And so you can find out more information about me. You can contact me through the website there if you want to set something up. And yeah, I'm always happy if I have the time to answer questions about the tarot before people want to commit to that reading. If I can do it briefly, I'll do it. And I don't have time to chat all day, but
You can give them a little bit of insight. And
exactly.
so you can find me at onetrueself.com, onetrueself.com, or email me at onetrueself@gmail.com. You can sign up for my newsletter and get some tips about the energetic weather, astrology, manifesting, and development on a spiritual level. So thank you so much for being with us. And I hope you learned a lot about the tarot. Thank you again, Julia.
Thank you.
Thank Thank you for listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin to master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Join us next time as Julia takes us deeper into the memory of the moments of light where transcendence and enlightenment emerge. The memory of the jewel of consciousness is always lived within you to tap into waves of energy and create huge changes by imagining the beauty of the vision and desires that are hidden in the heart. Learn to find your way back to nature, beauty, and your own heart, which holds the secrets of your existence and future. To discover more about Julia's adventures, animal communication, and the teachings she brings to every show, visit onetrueself.com. That's onetrueself.com. That's ONE, trueself.com.